Hey guys, welcome back to another week with us. It's my turn
Exciting
for the
week.
introduction, so I gotta throw my hands up or do something with
Yes,
my hands.
exciting week.
So we have as you can see, we have a new guest with us here this week. We have Chad. Chad's an Ohio State fan, so he's going to give us that perspective this week. Probably talk a little bit about Justin Fields and what the future holds for the Big Ten East. And then I'll turn it over to you, Justin. We can get started.
That sounds good. Far away, Chad.
Oh yeah, guys. So what's up? My name's Chad. I've been a long time Ohio State fan. Love college football. Love the Big Ten. So just really excited to be here and talk about football with you guys. Don't really have anybody else to talk about it with, so it's gonna be fun. Talk about different perspectives. I know everybody here likes a different team. Looks like we got a Kentucky fan, Wisconsin fan, Florida fan. So it's gonna be fun. I'm excited.
Right on, man. We're glad to have you.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you're going to catch me in the picks, but, holding on to a one-game lead over Matt. We started doing this video series, me and Matt, and then we brought Alex in. Alex is now with us for 2 weeks so far.
Yeah. Yep.
Third week. All right, but we'll do percentages, and then obviously if you want to come back, Chad, you're more than welcome to. We'll keep talking through the season.
Yes, sir. I saw the picks. Looks like you guys are. Looks like you're in the lead right now. I think Alex has got like 7-5. I don't remember Matt's, but
Yeah.
That is just one game behind me right now.
gotcha. Okay.
And I think, honestly, it's probably Matt first place, Alex and me.
Oh, okay. In percentages.
Since Alex has come back. All right, week 6, we got Georgia at Kentucky. Matt, you want to give us this one?
Well, I'll make this short and sweet, guys. It's not going to be pretty in Lexington on Saturday. I'll go ahead and tell you guys that. It's just not we don't even know who our starting quarterback's going to be this week. Terry Wilson has missed the first 2 practices this week with a minor injury. We don't know what it is. They haven't said. So it's looking more and more like Joey Gatewood's probably going to start, the 5-star transfer from Auburn. So, but if that same team shows up that you saw against Missouri last week, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly.
Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. I think this is the tell of 2 of the best defenses in the SEC. Georgia's definitely has the edge over Kentucky so far. Kentucky's problems are with Eddie Grant. I think we touched on that in the last video. It was always, is it Terry Wilson or is it Eddie Grant? I think this is going to really show us what it's going to be. Kentucky's going to be in desperation mode, and they're going to have to see Terry Wilson throw it. I don't want them to start throwing the ball. I thought it was really stupid of them to try to come out and sling the rock against Missouri last week.
Yeah.
But we'll see who Georgia's got. Georgia effectively had a bye week last week, so we'll see who Georgia ends up putting out their quarterback. Will it be the freshman or the walk-on mailman, or
walk-on mailman,
one of those 5 stars that they got sitting on the bench that somebody down here, Chad, knows about 5-star Georgia quarterbacks.
Yeah, right.
I got the jersey.
Chad, you got any beat on this game, Kentucky, Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be Georgia. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I mean, Georgia's been letting up, I think, an average of like 85 rushing yards a game. Actually, it's 65 rushing yards per game. So I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think it's going to be Georgia on this one for sure.
Yeah. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I think the same thing. I'm going to go with Georgia on this one. Kentucky just last week, like we talked about, just being inconsistent, not knowing who the quarterback is. I mean, and going into like a tough team like Georgia, if there was going to be an upset, I think things would have to be a little bit more in place for Kentucky. You know what I mean? And a little bit more consistent. You can't just shake things up and expect them to upset Georgia. I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm going to go with Georgia on this one.
Do we think this game would have been closer if we didn't see that Missouri game last week?
Yes.
I probably would think so. Yeah.
So this
I
game,
I would think this has got a better chance, like Alex said, of getting an upset if we had beaten Missouri last week. and kept the momentum going for these past two, like we did against Mississippi State and Tennessee.
Yeah.
But the fact that just all went out the water last week against Missouri, it's not going to happen. And to add another stat onto it, we've lost to Georgia 10 straight years now. So this is going to be number 11. So we haven't beaten them since 2009 down there. So
Yeah.
last time we beat them. Randall Cobb. Yeah.
All right, looks like we're all picking Georgia for that game. Next game, you got, I believe this is the 3:30 game. LSU at Auburn. Anybody want to take this one first?
I can start with this one. I think I'm going to go with LSU on this one. I think Auburn has gotten so lucky. And unless there's like some crazy call at the end of this game because, that saves Auburn, I think LSU's finally figuring it out, and I think they'll be better than what we saw in the first half of the season. And again, I think we've seen Auburn just narrowly escape a few weeks, and I don't think they're going to get out of this one. I really don't. I think if it's close, they're going to mess it up, and I'm going to go with the LSU on this one.
Yeah.
Matt?
I'm thinking LSU as well. I think it's I don't know. I mean, Auburn has scraped by, like you said. You brought that up, like Ole Miss and Arkansas, like they could have went either way in the end. And I think Auburn's gotten really lucky so far. I think LSU has shown some times where they kind of look like that team that won a national championship this year or last year. And, I think that they've had those moments for sure, like last week against South Carolina. I think that was a big game for them to kind of prove that they're still a tough team. And I just don't think Auburn's had a game like that all year. So I'm definitely going LSU with this one.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm going to go with LSU as well. I've got the same mindset as Alex does. Auburn has escaped in a few games this year for sure. I mean, good God, I don't know what these refs are getting paid or get blowing the smoke up Auburn's ass or what, but it's like they've escaped two games for sure. Arguably, arguably Auburn could be 1-4 right now easily. So, yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely going with LSU. LSU looks like the better team to me right now.
Yeah. The two things that concern me the most about this game is early for LSU. Georgia ran the ball over Auburn. We watched that. I don't think LSU's offensive line is as good as Georgia's offensive line is. But I also don't think that Auburn's secondary could hang with LSU. Now, they played tough last week against South Carolina, who has a pretty prolific passing attack, namely Shot Smith. But I think LSU has something with their quarterback that they have. And those receivers are just so hard to guard. I think it's going to be a better Auburn offensive performance, but I think LSU's just got all the right pieces right now, and they're clicking. They came off that bye week. Great game against South Carolina. Really haven't had a bad offensive performance all year, but it looks like their defense is starting to settle into the season. So I'm going to take LSU as well. Next game, Wisconsin at Nebraska. Alex, let us know what's going on in Camp Rent.
Yeah. So we're down to the fourth string quarterback at this point. I don't know. I saw a report actually tonight where they think Wisconsin's hitting the levels where they don't think that they're going to be eligible to play this weekend. So this is a game that I don't think probably will end up happening. I think if it does, I think Wisconsin would win, but I think it would be really, really close. The only thing that makes me nervous about this is, you're down to a fourth string quarterback, right? Wisconsin's defense is solid. They're always pretty solid, which I think that'll shut down, Nebraska. But the problem is there's no Jonathan Taylor this year to pick up the slack if a quarterback goes down, and that's where you get into trouble. One thing I would be curious this week, there's a star running back that we have. He was a top recruit, Jalen Berger, that we did not play the first week. And I'm wondering if Paul Chris would make any adjustments to be like, all right, now we really need to focus on the run game. And you might see him this week if they play. I'm not really sure. I don't know a whole lot about the four-string quarterback. I'm just hoping that, he's okay. I feel like you don't need anybody that's like crazy to beat Nebraska. You just need someone to be like consistent throwing. You know what I mean? Just don't make a whole lot of mistakes. Just make those passes. But I don't know. I really don't know on this one if it's going to happen. If it does happen, I think it's going to be way closer than it should be. But I think Wisconsin will find a way this week.
Okay. Matt, you want this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and choose Wisconsin as well. I mean, I know they are down to the fourth-string quarterback, but I like what I saw from their defense last week. And basically Nebraska is the Tennessee of the Big Ten. We're back. We're going to win the Natty. We're going all the way. But yet their fans are delusional just as much as Tennessee fans are delusional. You don't understand that you've got juggernauts in your conference like Ohio State in the Big Ten and Wisconsin, and you got Bama in the SEC and Georgia and Florida in the SEC. It's just, no. Nebraska is not – no. Wisconsin's going to be better team by far.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go ahead, Chad. I'm going to take the Huskers, actually. Getting down to a four-string quarterback. Not looking really good running the ball. I think some of that was also a little bit of offensive line, at least in some of the plays that I got to watch in that game. I'm going with the Huskers losing to Ohio State last week. When they started off pretty nice against Ohio State. Now, I don't think they're going to be able to do that for 4 quarters in pretty much any game. But I do think that Nebraska has enough pieces there that where this is going to be a very low-scoring game. And Nebraska is going to be able to edge it out, given the fact that they're not going to be facing a Justin Fields throwing over the top of them. They're going to be facing a 4-string quarterback in Wisconsin.
Right.
So I'm going to take the upset this week and go with Nebraska. Who knows how that's going to shape up.
Yeah, Justin, I'm with you, honestly. That was kind of a tough one to think about. But I think, if Mertz was in or if they had, a Jonathan Taylor, I think that I'm still taking Wisconsin regardless of them being on a 4th-string quarterback. They've got a really solid defense. I mean, they shut down Illinois the other day. I mean, they had 87 passing yards is how many passing yards Illinois had. So, but I mean, I watched Nebraska play Ohio State. I watched that whole game, and I don't think Nebraska's terrible this year. I really don't. I mean, they had 210 rushing yards. I can't remember the last team I could say that about against Ohio State. And I know Ohio State lost, they lost Jeff Okudah and Chase Young, and you can't replace guys like that. But they got some old linebackers. I mean, guys are like 5th-year seniors, Pete Warner, Tough Borland. You got some good guys up front as well. 210 rushing yards is no joke against the Buckeyes. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to say like 24-21, but Nebraska.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, there's no question if Mertz was the quarterback, there would be absolutely no doubt that you guys would go in there and whip their butt. I mean, even if we saw the second, if we saw the 3rd-string quarterback, who knows how it would be there. But I do think this was going to be a tough matchup for Wisconsin just because of the desperate factor that Nebraska is going to be playing with. Because they can't let this start sliding. Because I think they play, you said, Penn State next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, they got to get somebody. And who better than Wisconsin who's facing a COVID situation?
Right. And, I think they'll have that edge, too. Like, it's a little bit of, it's less anxiety for them going into the week knowing that Wisconsin's hurting like that. Yeah. So they know that they're not going to get the Wisconsin that they usually get. And, like you said, if the running game was there, I wouldn't be as worried, but I am worried about this one. I think it's a toss-up, and I don't know. The odds aren't in Wisconsin's favor here.
I'm hoping I'm severely wrong. I'd like to see Wisconsin get it with that.
Yeah.
I think you'll see Alex. I mean, Luke McCaffrey, they have him running from the Wildcat. I mean, he's a beast.
He's good.
It's hard to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, he was good from what I saw.
All right. And then the next game on our slot, and sorry to the Big Ten boys, but we got Arkansas and Texas A&M. Pat, you want to start that one?
Arkansas and Texas A&M. This is actually, believe it or not, I think a going to be a very close, tough game because with the way Arkansas has looked this year, I did not expect them to do very well at all with a new head coach. And, they hadn't won a league game since 2017. And I didn't expect them to do anything this year. And you got to think they're a back call away from being 3-1 right now. So, but I'm going to go with Texas A&M, and it's solely because they are at home. And Kyle Field seems to have almost a sellout crowd every week. We witnessed that when they played Florida a couple weeks ago. There's no 20-25% capacity going on down there. It seems like they're doing 50 or 60 or possibly 80. I don't know, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Texas A&M.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of the way. Arkansas is winning this game, and it's gonna be big time this time. I think Arkansas has got enough pieces on offense. Texas A&M's defense is paperweight. They played well against Mississippi State, but everybody since LSU has been playing well against Texas A&M. Yeah, I think this is the best defense Texas A&M's played, including Alabama. So I think that Arkansas can go in here with Barry Odom as the defensive coordinator and shut down Kellen Mond, who's been the most inconsistent quarterback in the SEC game by game. We all know JG is the worst quarterback in the SEC. I'm going to go with the Hogs. I think Arkansas starts solidifying a nice little run here.
Yeah, I think I don't know. This one's hard because you have the night game factor too, which like if there's going to be an upset, it's going to be at night. You know what I mean? On the primetime stage. Yeah. This is so hard. But I agree with you, Justin, though. I mean, you look at so many of these games that they've played in, and they've played extremely well. A&M, they're good. They're obviously pretty good, but I'm with you. I'm going to go with Arkansas on this one. I think that, we saw it with Auburn, right? They barely got out of there. I think Arkansas pulls this off. I think it's going to be close, but I think they pull it off.
Yeah. You got a beat on this one, Chad?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Arkansas as well. I mean, I think that they've looked tough so far. It looks like they have something to prove after some years where they looked like, the doormat of the SEC. They weren't looking good for a long time. I think that they've been playing well. Like you said, I think their defense is really good, and I just think it's going to be Arkansas.
Yeah. The other point that I didn't bring up is this is a chance for them to beat a top 10 team. I mean, that's another thing you're playing for, going on the road and beating a top 10 team. The thing that they should have done against Auburn, as Matt illustrated, they had that game slip away from them because of a terrible call. But with Georgia, they hung with them for a half. They should have beaten Auburn, who was maybe not top 10, but they were 14th ranked team when they played. I think this is the time they deliver. And I think this is a good opponent for them to have. I know it's going to start slowing down for Arkansas. You got Alabama still on the schedule. You still got LSU on the schedule. And they still got Florida on the schedule going down the swamp. I can't see Arkansas continuing this trend, but I think this is the big hurrah. And, welcome Sam Pittman to the SEC. You're definitely solidified as one of the top coaches. All right, let's move on. 7:30 kickoff. Florida's first game in 3 weeks playing Missouri. Florida had 6 more cases today, bringing the total up to, 34 in the entire month of October. To put this into perspective, Florida came back to campus on late June or early July, and they only had 10 cases up until October. Now they've had 36 in the month of October. The coach and staff blames it on the travel going to Texas A&M and being in those tight conditions. They think they already had some players that had not tested positive but did have the symptoms of coronavirus And subsequently, those players, when they came back, were the first to test positive. So it started just being a snowball effect after coming back from Texas A&M. Florida, not a lot to say. I mean, we haven't seen them since the Texas A&M game. We know their offense is elite. We know that their defense is very, very suspect. No time to practice. So we'll see how that goes. We've seen Missouri come on with a good quarterback. We got a good coach that can draw up some plays. I don't think they're quite there yet. I mean, they still kind of have a tendency to rely on. Ever since Drew Lock left, they've kind of been a run first kind of team, but they still want to sprinkle in the pass. I think this is a bad matchup for Missouri. I think Florida is one of the best offenses in the country. And if they have all their pieces, they have their line in place, they have Kyle Pitts, they have Kyle Trask, they have Kadarius Toney, Trayvon Grimes, Copeland, Whitmore. If they have any combination of three of those receivers, they're going to be able to move the ball pretty well against Missouri. I think Florida demolishes them wearing their 1964 throwback jerseys. I don't know if you guys got them. Very, very nice. Florida's wearing blue helmet for the first time since 1966. Chad, you want next?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we haven't seen Florida play in 3 weeks. I think, as long as this game is played, I'm going to pick Florida. I think, at home, they're definitely going to win. Missouri's 0-5 in their last games on the road. So I don't think Missouri has a chance. I don't think they've looked that well or that good. But yeah, I'll pick Florida for sure.
Matt?
I'm going to go ahead and go with Florida as well. I love your all's offense. I think it's that, like you said, it's definitely one of the best ones in the conference, definitely one of the best in the country. And, I mean, I know your all's defense is very suspect, but I still think that your all's offense can help you out in this game for sure. And with it being in the swamp, it's definitely going to help y'all out.
Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I think, the same thing. I think Florida walks away in this one. And I think they beat them by quite a bit. I don't think it'll be that close. Again, they've been off a few weeks, so who knows what that looks like. Maybe the first half, maybe they don't connect a little bit, but it's one of those things where by the second quarter, I'm sure they'll get things to click, and then they'll start pulling away, and it won't be much of a game.
Yeah. Another thing that I didn't mention is Florida's captain on defense returns for the first time this year. Defensive tackle. I don't know if you watched much of Florida's games. Whenever a team decides to run the ball, it's right down our throats. And our defensive tackles can't do anything. They're just paperweight when it comes to taking on the line. So it's huge to have Kyrie Campbell back on the line. And he's the vocal leader. I mean, something Florida's usually had on their defensive side of the ball. So, yeah, I think Florida is going to have a better game defensively, but I don't think it's going to be what we were hoping for due to the COVID outbreak. Chad, you want to give us the nightcap game, our final game of the night?
Yeah. So Ohio State, Penn State. It's gonna be a good game. Obviously, at the beginning of this year, I think a lot of people would have said whoever wins this game is going to be Big Ten champions, and go on to the playoffs. I don't think that's the case anymore. I'm not going to say that Penn State didn't end up looking decent at the end of last week against Indiana. I still think that game was decided on a call that was made on the field that couldn't be overturned. But Sean Clifford started off that game not looking great. I think that Indiana capitalized on some turnovers. I just think that this game versus Ohio State, they're missing too much. You've got Journey Brown. He's out. He has some medical condition that they're not telling anybody what it is. He was their star running back last year. He was looking to be real good this year. And then Micah Parsons, obviously opting out of the season, being their star linebacker. That hurts. That hurts their defense. We've got Justin Fields. We've got arguably the best, if not second, third best receiver core in the nation, even with these two guys. I don't know if you guys caught that catch. Was it Smith in the – oh, my gosh, in the back of the
It's
At first, I
literally
was like, oh,
insane.
he's out of bounds. And then they showed the replay in slow motion. I was like, no way. So, I mean, I still think they're going to roll. I think that I don't think Ohio State has a real challenge until they play Michigan at the end of the year, and I think it's going to be Ohio State by probably a decent amount.
Yeah. I'll go ahead. Do you foresee this game at all being just passions, Penn State, Ohio State, or is that kind of overblown? Do you think that people are overhyping this kind of rivalry, or is it really legitimate blood? Is it Ohio State kind of just being the big brother, or is it Penn State really thinking they got a shot in this game?
I think besides this year, the last few years, I mean, my favorite Ohio State game of all time, it was 2017 when we were down 14-0 at one point, came back and won 39-38. Penn State is one game away. If they beat Ohio State one, maybe two games, I think they take the lead in this rivalry. I think they take over the Big Ten because they start winning recruits. And I think they're so close to being there, and I think that's what creates that rivalry is that James Franklin, he's doing such a good job. I mean, even I, as a longtime Ohio State fan, a few years back, and I'm a college recruit, say I'm a 5-star, I would have loved to go and play for Urban Meyer and the Buckeyes in Ohio State. But now when you talk about the coaches, I mean, Ryan Day versus James Franklin, who would you want to play for as somebody who's not biased to Ohio State? I might want to go play for James Franklin. I think he's a great leader. He's a great recruiter. He seems to really connect with the guys on his team. I think he's really building the culture there, and I think that's why there's that intense rivalry because these guys are going to be powerhouses, just not this year. Penn State lost too much because of COVID, and I think that it's just a down year for them, but they'll bounce back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I feel. I think that this is the year that Ohio State might have a last hurrah. Jury's still out on that one. But I totally agree with you with the Meyer thing. It really established the pipeline with Florida, hitting all those recruits in. Those kids were, in their early teens when Florida was going out there and winning national championships. So I think Ohio State's been running a real dominant path. But it is about time that Michigan and Penn State and Wisconsin start catching up a little bit with them. But I am going with Ohio State this week. Alex?
Yeah, I think, if you would have asked me last week before the Indiana game, I would have told you I would think it would be a better game. I don't think it's going to be that close this week. I think Ohio State's going to lay a pretty good beating on them. It's just one of those things. I feel like OSU just has better talent this year. I agree with you guys, though, with, James Franklin. I think he's done a heck of a job coming in there. I think, rebranding from all the everything that went on there, you know what I mean? I mean, he brought them back and really cleaned up the image. And he's done a great job. And just like Chad said, that game was insane that year, back in 2017. He's played Ohio State really, really close. The past few years. It's always a great game. I mean, I hope it's a good game, but I don't think it will be. I think OSU is just too talented this year. And I think Justin Fields is just a man on a mission. He wanted to bring football back. He got his wish, and he's not gonna let it slip. But with what Wisconsin's dealing with right now, though, my concern is I look at the other teams, right? I look at mainly Ohio State because I think they're the only other team probably out there that is likely to get in the playoffs within the Big Ten. And I think to myself, what happens if he gets it towards the end? Like before, I mean, I'm sure they have recruits and you know what I mean? The run game would be fine. But just the Big Ten protocols of being 21 days sitting, I mean, and no bye weeks. It's like they want this to just completely crumble. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's frustrating to watch. And I'm happy that it's happening, I guess, at the beginning of the season. But I'm also kind of worried because it's like, will Graham Mertz be back for Michigan for us in 3 weeks? And it's like I would hate to see that happen to Ohio State. You know what I mean? I would much rather them, someone in the Big Ten get a fair shake at it than get hurt by the Big Ten policies of sitting 21 days when there's really no point to do that, Yeah.
Before you say something, Matt, I will say that it's like the Big Ten is trying to outsmart the crowd. They were the first to say, okay, we're not doing football, and then they come in and then they're only conference that does this 21 game rule. Everybody else defers to the CDC and say 10 days after your first positive test.
Right.
So it's like the Big Ten is just constantly trying to be the Cavalier, and it's completely unnecessary. The fall in a lot of situations. There's only 8-game season for you don't have a lot of wiggle room when it comes to playoff picture if you start missing some games.
I just don't think there's any reason. I don't understand not having the bye in there. You know what I mean? To reschedule a game or at least be able to postpone one to like evenly match up a schedule at the end of the season. I think a lot of I think it's virtue signaling a little bit, just showing like, hey, we're going above and beyond. It's like there's really no need to. You know what I mean? I don't know if there's any scientific research to prove what they're doing. You know what I mean? That's what's crazy. But I get it. They need to keep their brand on point, but I would just hate for it to hurt a different team within the Big Ten. And who knows? Like I feel like personally, I'll be extremely frustrated if they start making exceptions towards the end of the seasons for other teams, and they didn't do it for one team. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the number one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about at this point is like, how many people does this have to happen to before they're going to be like, you know what, we'll do CDC guidelines, and then all of a sudden, it's only a game or 2 games that someone misses instead of 3.
Exactly. What do you think about this game, Ohio State, Penn State?
I think traditionally these last few years, it's been one of the best games to watch in Big Ten for sure, if not during the entire regular season. But I think with Penn State's loss to Indiana, this is not the game for them to bounce back up against Ohio State. So I'm like Alex. I don't think this is going to be close. I think Ohio State wins this thing running away. They're just the far better team.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our picks. I think we disagreed on more this week than we have in other weeks. We definitely disagreed on the Nebraska-Wisconsin game. Arkansas, Texas A&M game. Matt had Texas A&M. Everybody else had Arkansas. But as far as everything else, I think we picked pretty much chalk, right? Ohio State, LSU, Florida, Georgia. It's kind of hard to go against a lot of those teams. Chad, real quickly, you got, looks like 3 minutes. Can you give us a roadmap for Ohio State this year? Things that you would like to see, where you think the team will end up, who you'd like to see step up, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I see them having an awesome year. I think that our biggest roadblock this year, preventing us from either winning the Big Ten or getting to the playoffs, is going to be Michigan, honestly, after that first week. And that may change, but Joe Milton looks like the guy for the job. They haven't had a good quarterback in years. Some of the years, I think that's the only thing that's been holding Michigan back from winning is the fact that their quarterback play has just been pretty terrible. So that's probably the game that I'm the most nervous for, is the Michigan game for sure. Besides that, of course, we've still got Clemson in the end. I assume that if we win out, go to the playoffs, that's probably who it's going to be in the championship. In terms of who I'd like to see step up, of course, you've got these 2 5-star recruits at wide receiver coming in as true freshmen, 18 years old. They're coming in. I think they're going to make a name for themselves. I think it's going to be a very fun offense to watch all year long, but I think the defense needs to step up. I think that some of these guys that are in the secondary that are young, they haven't got experience before, pretty much replaced some absolute studs, in all parts of the defense, especially Okuda and Chase Young. Like, you can't replace guys like that. And especially with guys that haven't been in that role before. So I think the defense is really going to have to step up, especially when we're playing offenses like the one that Michigan's going to have this year. But I think our offense is one of the best in the entire nation, the first or second best. I would give it, honestly, I would say Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State have the 3 best offenses in the nation. But I think it's just going to be the uncertainty of the defense, really, that holds us back, if anything holds us back this year.
Yeah. I tell you, I think Ohio State maybe if Georgia turns their program around, I think Ohio State has the most compelling story in college football this year. That loss against Clemson, when, in my opinion, they were still the best team. I know LSU did what they were doing crazy and all. I still thought Ohio State was the best team in the country, and I really was kicking around, hoping that Ohio State and LSU were going to square up in the national championship. I think you can't oversell what that did to the program and how Justin Fields feels about that. It is kind of a revenge tour. I think he's on a mission to get back there. We're so close to making it to the national championship and falling short to Clemson. So I think that a lot of people are going to be keeping an eye on Ohio State all year. I think Ohio State probably, for most people, believe is going to have kind of cruise control until they get to Indianapolis. We'll see Michigan. I don't know. We got one game sample sizes. People in the SEC know what one game sample sizes are all about. You know, speaking of Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Anybody heard from KJ Costello? Yeah.
No.
But yeah, I think we're probably going to watch an Ohio State dominated Big Ten East all year long. I mean, maybe them or Rutgers, you know.
Michigan State's the new Rutgers. There's no question about that. They look terrible. They look terrible.
Oh man. Well, Chad, thanks so much for joining us.